The rain had turned the narrow roadside ditch into a thin ribbon of mud, and the evening sky hung low and grey, as if the world itself was holding its breath. He almost didn't see her at first, a still shape half, slumped against the wet grass, clothes torn, face bruised beyond recognition. But when his headlights swept over her body, and he noticed the unnatural angle of her legs and the faint rise of her chest, his heart dropped into his stomach. This was no accident seen left moments ago. This was someone abandoned, broken, and left to fade away. And in that instant, a poor single father who had nothing left to give found himself kneeling in the mud, about to change his life forever. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the power of doing the right thing even when you have nothing, take a moment right now to like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel. Stories like this exist because people like you still care. He was a single dad in every sense of the word, tired eyes, worn jacket, hands rough from years of odd jobs that barely kept food on the table. Life had taken his wife years earlier, leaving him alone with a small child and a weight of responsibility that never lifted. Every day was a calculation of sacrifice, which bill could wait, which meal could be skipped, which dream had to die quietly so his child could live a little better. That night he was coming home late, exhausted, mind heavy with unpaid rent, and a child waiting with homework questions he might not have the answers to. He didn't have time for miracles or tragedies. But fate didn't ask for his permission. As he knelt beside the woman, he saw the deep purple bruises on her face, the dirt smeared into her hair, the way her eyes fluttered but never fully opened. She was alive, barely, but something was terribly wrong. When he tried to move her arm, there was no resistance, no reaction. Panic tightened in his chest. He knew, without understanding how, that her spine was injured, that one wrong move could cost her what little chance she had left. His phone shook in his hand as he called for help, voice breaking as he described the location, begging them to hurry. While waiting, he took off his jacket and placed it gently over her shoulders, shielding her from the cold rain. He spoke to her softly, not knowing if she could hear him, telling her she wasn't alone, that help was coming, that someone cared. Those words were as much for himself as for her, because for the first time in years his life felt suddenly larger than survival. At the hospital, he stayed long after the ambulance doors closed behind her. He should have gone home. He needed sleep. His child needed him, but his feet refused to move. When the doctor finally came out, the news was grim. Severe trauma, internal injuries, and spinal damage. She was alive, but paralyzed from the waist down. Whether she would ever walk again was uncertain, and then came the question that cracked something deep inside him. Did he know her name? When they finally identified her, the world tilted. She wasn't a stranger. She was someone from his past, someone whose face he hadn't seen in years, but whose shadow had followed him quietly through life. She had once been powerful, a woman who moved in circles far removed from his struggling world. Someone who, long ago, had made a decision that indirectly shattered his life, costing him a job, security, and a future he had believed in. He had never imagined their paths would cross again like this, with her broken in a hospital bed and him standing there in borrowed clothes, smelling of rain and mud. He could have walked away. Many would have. Fate had already punished her. Life had already taken its toll. But as he looked at her lying there, fragile and silent, anger drained out of him, replaced by something heavier and more human. She wasn't the powerful figure from his memories anymore. She was a wounded soul who had been beaten, abandoned, and left to die. Days turned into weeks. She remained unconscious at first, then slowly began to wake, trapped in a body that no longer obeyed her. When she learned the truth, who had found her, who had stayed, who had ensured she wasn't alone, shame filled her eyes. The past hung between them like an unspoken confession. She remembered him too. She remembered the choices she had made, the lives affected, the consequences she never thought she would face. Against every rational thought, he kept coming back after work, after cooking dinner for his child. After exhaustion screamed at him to rest, he brought small things, flowers picked from the roadside, books from second-hand shops, stories about his child's day, not because he owed her anything, but because compassion doesn't ask permission from logic. And slowly, something changed in both of them. For her, the presence of a man who had every reason to hate her, but chose kindness instead, became a lifeline. She began to fight, through pain, humiliation, and despair, to reclaim whatever pieces of her life she could. For him, helping her awakened something long buried, dignity, purpose, and the quiet realization that he was more than what life had taken from him. As the truth of what happened to her emerged, betrayal, violence, people she trusted turning against her, he saw how power had never protected her from cruelty, and she saw how poverty had never stripped him of integrity. Two broken lives, standing on opposite sides of the world, now bound by an act of mercy on a rainy roadside. When legal matters unfolded, when authorities learned who saved her, opportunities arose that he never sought, but desperately needed, not as a reward, but as a consequence of truth coming to light. Stability followed slowly, not wealth, not miracles, but relief enough to breathe, enough to hope. Near the end of her rehabilitation, she asked for him to be there on a difficult day, when fear threatened to swallow her whole. He stood beside her wheelchair, steady and silent, the same way he had knelt beside her in the mud, and in that moment both understood that forgiveness doesn't erase the past, it transforms it. If this story has touched your heart, if it made you believe even a little more in humanity, please take a moment to like the video, share it, and subscribe. Your support helps stories like this reach others who need hope. Before this video ends, leave a comment below telling us, do you believe one act of kindness can truly change a life? That night on the roadside, a poor single dad thought he was just stopping to help a stranger. He didn't know he was stepping into a story that would heal wounds on both sides of fate, and she didn't know that being found broken would lead her to rediscover what it means to be human. Sometimes salvation doesn't come as rescue. Sometimes it arrives as a hand reaching out in the rain, refusing to let go.